Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am super excited about this gentleman coming to play and talk to us. Christopher Wu, he's the first violin chair for the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra. He's a graduate of the Eastman School of Music up in Rochester, New York, a very prestigious music school. He joined PSO in 1988. In his 30-year career, he's played with a bunch of different orchestras and symphonies, Boston being one of them, Cleveland and Philadelphia, so forth. Played with numerous recording artists, so forth, some music festivals throughout, I guess all over the place, huh? He is also an adjunct professor, which means adjunct means he's not a full-time professor, but he's a professor of violin at the Carnegie Mellon University, which also has a very, very good music program, I understand. Along with Duquesne. Now, when we talked, he asked about a couple of things, and one of them was about donations to the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra. Just to diverge a little bit, we have a world-class orchestra here. This symphony is known worldwide as being one of the top symphonies, so it needs to be supported. But I used a term, and he said, I kind of put it to him like, yeah, you're welcome to pimp for donations, and a pimp was probably the wrong word. So I'm going to save him from saying that out loud, and I'll say it. I'm going to pimp for donations for the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra today. But anyway, he's also a very avid golfer. I don't know what his handicap is, but maybe he'll let us know. But anyway, Mr. Chris Wu.
Thank you, Mark. It's really a gift for me to be here this morning, and I thank you for coming. I have to be honest with you, I haven't said the Pledge of Allegiance in a long time, and it was nice to say that, and it was nice to sing the Star-Spangled Banner as well. I'd like to actually open up with a prayer in honor of George Williams, who founded the YMCA in 1844. And his whole idea was because of unhealthy social conditions that arose after the Industrial Revolution, he wanted a place for fellowship, and that's what we're doing today. So if you wouldn't mind just bowing your head for a couple minutes, I'd like to open up with a prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for the gift of another day, and thank you for every single person that's here. I'm so grateful for George and his vision for the YMCA, and I pray that our fellowship today will be honoring to you. We just thank you for this time together in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you. So I was thrilled when Mark, actually it's Jim Redmond who told Mark about me, and I was thrilled when Mark invited me to talk about, well, it was sort of more about golf than music. But I did a talk, I don't know if there's some golfers here, but there's a course called Reynolds Plantation down in Atlanta, and they had me do a talk, and And actually, there was also the Pittsburgh Symphony Women's Association asked me to do a talk, and so I've come up with this talk called Tempo, A Life of Music in Golf. Because in golf, you're always talking about the tempo, and in music, I'm always playing the wrong tempo, so my friends are getting mad at me. But if you get the right tempo, everything seems to fit so easily. And so what I did was I started thinking, okay, I won't do the David Letterman top 10 list, but I'll come up with my top 5 golf courses and top 5 music halls that I've played in. And I'm looking forward to sharing that with you in just a few minutes. But I thought it would be good just to give you a little background of how do you do music as a profession? Where did it all start from? And I have to always thank my mother and father for giving me the tools, but also having the patience to give me the lessons. My parents were both born outside of Shanghai and were given a one-way ticket to the US for, their parents said, go, get an education, get a job, and if you can afford to come back and see your family, that's the only way you're gonna come back. And my dad went to MIT and became a chemical engineer, and my mother was a homemaker. And we lived in Rochester. We lived in a number of places, but primarily Rochester, New York, and he worked for Mobile Chemicals. Before that, we were living in Chicago, and my mom, I loved sports. I loved playing outside, aside from golf, basketball, baseball, whatever the sport was, I just wanted to take part in it. My mom didn't like that so much. You all know the Tiger Mom book? Before that book was written, she'll never like me saying this, but she was like the example, because she was like, you have to practice. You have to play the violin. You have to do it. And back then, it was like, I don't want to practice. I don't want to do this, Practice an hour a day. I still have a napkin at home that says, no practice, no eat. I really should be starving right now, but I think it was a wonderful discipline that I'm sort of getting on the bandwagon now of, I wish kids today in school would take up an instrument as something different. It's nothing against sports. I love sports. I think they should. But the amount of money that's being invested in sports that could be invested in a music education, I think could do wonders for everybody involved. I'm going to do a little sort of musical autobiography of how my life has gotten to where it is now. So the reason I always thank my mother is because of this. You hear this. Right? That's all you hear, right? And your mother goes, "It's great, Chris." 3 weeks later, right? You use a little more bow, and it sounds like this. Right? And she's, great, here's an extra cookie for making actual sound. And then you learn twinkle, right? But you're about this tall. And you play all these variations. But the patience that is needed for a parent, and I have kids too, so I sort of, after 10 years of trying to help them, I said, okay, maybe something else, let's try something else. But it was the discipline of playing an hour a day. I will say, sorry. I should say the biggest trouble I ever got was I was practicing. I was a big Chicago Bears fan. I still am a little bit, but I was practicing in front of the TV on a Monday Night Football. I had the TV on, and I'm practicing my scales, and then I look behind my shoulder, and there's my mom looking at me. The TV went off, and I never did that again. But I think practicing, finding a way, and I teach this to my kids now at Carnegie Mellon, you can find a way to be a scientist in the practice room. Some things work, some things don't work. Don't try to play something like someone else plays it. Play it the way that you feel it in your heart. So I was taking lessons, and my mom and dad were encouraging me. My mom sat with me. She learned how to play the instrument. I have a brother and sister. My brother's a doctor in New Haven, and my sister is in Washington. And they took piano, and she would spend the time taking us all to lessons. And I know with families now, the dynamics of families now, there's so much going on. I just wish that at a certain point, there might be just a little bit of time carved out to share some music at home. Unfortunately, my dad passed away when I was 14 years old. He had cancer, he had lung cancer. He never smoked, but he had, we think, asbestosis. We're not sure. But it was a real jolt, obviously, to the family. But as part of my musical autobiography, I'd like to play a piece in honor of him. I played a piece at his funeral, which was by Bach, but I sort of wish I had known this piece at that time. This is, and many of you will know it if you watched the Ken Burns Civil War on PBS. It's a piece that Jay Unger wrote, and it's called Ashikin Farewell. So I would just like to play this for you in honor of my father. So there's, when you hear music like that, there's a very famous Hans Christian Andersen quote that says, where words fail, music speaks. And I'm just so thankful to be able to, that we're able to share these incredible pieces and these incredible notes that really, they tug on your heart, and they're able to sort of do something for your heart, for me, that words can't. So after my father passed away, I went to music school, mainly because I wasn't a great student and I didn't know what else to do. And my mom, being the Tiger mom, said, wait a minute, we're Chinese. You got to be like a chemical engineer or a doctor. And I go, but I want to go to music school. So we went to music school, and she actually said to my teacher, it's like, yeah, but what is he going to do? Like, I mean, is it a part-time, like, what do you do? And he told her, look, I'm 90 years old and I'm still playing and I'm still teaching. You'll be fine. And so I went to school, and after I graduated my bachelor's degree, I didn't know what to do. I actually had no idea what to do. So what do you do when you're sort of stuck after your bachelor's degree? You get a master's. Let's just prolong school and get into debt some more. And so I got my master's degree, and I remember my mom saying, "Okay, well, what are you going to do?" And so I said, well, I'll take orchestra auditions. And after my first year, during my second year of my master's degree, I started auditioning for orchestras. And my mom said, okay, how much money should I set aside for you to fly to these places? And I was, 20, what did I know? I was 22 at the time, 21 at the time, and I said, $3,000. And so I started auditioning, and the Pittsburgh Symphony was my first audition. I just wanted to see what the competition was like. I was so green. I don't know if you can remember when you're so young and you just you have no idea about what actually anything that is going on. That was me. I was driving to these auditions. I drove to this audition, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? I want on stage. And so this is part of my next musical autobiography, is that I'm going to demonstrate for you just a short portion of what I had to do on that stage to win my job at the Pittsburgh Symphony. Then you play a little Mozart piece like this. By Mendelssohn like this. And then you play a piece like Strauss, like this. And you have 6 minutes. In those 6 minutes, it sort of flashes by you. First of all, I have to tell you, you are behind a screen in the first round, so they don't know race, gender, they don't know any of that. And then after that, then they put you in front of the screen after that 6 minutes. Those 6 minutes are a little stressful. Those 6 minutes are stressful. And then if they, after you get past that stress, and and there's probably, I think there were 200 people that auditioned for my job way back in 1988. If they like it, then they say, we'd like you to play in the next round. And that's the semifinal round. The semifinal round, you get about 15 minutes to play. Same kind of thing, but you actually get to see everybody, the 9 or 10 people there. And then after that, if they like it, then they come up and they say, we'd like you to play for the music director. Back in 1988, it was Lauren Mazel. Andre Previn was before him. Morris Jansson's after Maestro Mazel. And now we have Manfred Honeck. So you would be playing for anybody who wants to audition, please let me know. We can have you play for Manfred Honeck. And it's 20 to 30 minutes, you're by yourself. And you get to play. It's funny because I was having dinner with Ben Roethlisberger years ago, and I said, so is it like a competition in training camp every single day? And he goes, yeah, it's an audition every single day. He said, isn't it like that for you? I go, no, it's bad, but it's not quite that bad. So it's, the audition is definitely strenuous, and you don't have much chance in that first 6 minutes. If they hear something they don't like, you're done. And we have people that have taken 30 auditions, and you can imagine after 28, 29 times of going in, playing for 6 minutes, and then them playing, saying, thank you, thank you. You have to really love what you're doing and want to be a part of, the orchestra that you're auditioning for. So, I was blessed with a job that I'm just so thankful to have to this day. Maestro Mazel picked me because he said, look, he's young. I was 21 at the time, and he said, he's young. We can mold him. We can make, a lot of people, not a lot, there were a couple people on the audition committee I found out later that didn't want me. He doesn't have any experience. He doesn't know what he was doing. I kind of agreed with them, but Maestro Mazel said, okay, let's get him. And it has been a dream job for me, really, to travel the world, to play music with incredible, incredible artists. On stage with us as soloists, but also my own colleagues in the orchestra. These people are not only special artists, they're special people that so much care about the community and care about bringing great music to Pittsburgh. So I'm so thankful for the job in the orchestra. I want to back up a little bit. While I was in college, my teacher said, you need a new violin. When I was growing up, my father had bought me a $400 Andrew H. Potter violin that is probably the orange shape. It was the color of this orange shape in this box right here, and sounded, probably sounded like that box if I could draw a bow on that box. Didn't sound very good, so my teacher said, you need to get a violin. And I was talking to some friends earlier today, and when you buy an instrument, you don't go to the Home Depot and pick up a violin. You first determine how much you want to pay for an instrument. My mother, said, how much do you think we have to pay? I said, how about $10,000? Now this is 1984. It's a lot of money. She goes, and she's a widow. So she goes, okay. We start looking. I probably played 20 to 30 violins, and they didn't sound much better than my Andrew H. Potter. So, how about 15,000? Okay. How about 20,000? So we finally found this instrument. This instrument was $35,000 in 1984. And as I was telling everybody here, I'm always telling financial advisors, they do appreciate, you should invest in a violin, and I have some for you if you want to. Nobody has bid on it yet, but I'm so grateful to my mom for just being able to sacrifice so that she could allow me to have this violin, which is a great gift, and to be able to share music with others. And I think, at the time she had no idea what would happen, whether I would even get a job, whether I would even be in music. But we had a lot of people who were helping us acquire this instrument in terms of just advice, not financially, but they were really emotionally saying, you know what, buy that violin. That violin is gonna, that's gonna pay dividends. And I'm so thankful for it. It's hard to find an instrument that you can sync, that you can feel someone's heart in, that you can actually, it's your voice. Nobody wants to hear you talk, they want to hear you play. And so it's hard to find an instrument that actually can do what you want to when you want to get gritty, when you want to play soft, when you want to play something really passionate, and so finding one, I'm so grateful. This instrument was made in 1727 in Naples, Italy. And of course, I should probably have Mark take over the mic now, because he was actually schooling me on why instruments from back then sound so much better than the ones they do today. But it really is, and when you have an instrument, it needs to be played. And the more it's played, the better it gets, the warmer the sound. And so you can imagine from 1727 how many times this instrument has been played. And I just feel like each day, it might be my hearing, but each day it gets warmer and warmer and warmer sound-wise. And I feel like I can try to do and experiment more and more with the sounds I'm trying to get. So as I have played in the orchestra since 1988, the musical autobiography continues in that I got married. I met my wife, who was widowed at the time, had a 2-year-old boy, Wesley, who I adopted, who works for the Steelers now, so I'm living vicariously through him. He's a radio announcer for the Steelers and does the halftime and post-game show. And so when we got married, she was a little bit older, and we were older in our 30s, and she was actually 44. We wanted to have 6 kids, our dream of like having tons of kids. And at 44, it's a little unrealistic, but we still said, okay, we'd like to have kids. And we had a real hard time getting pregnant. And we tried all of the medical procedures, and finally we just sort of gave up and said, look, God doesn't have it, for us. Maybe we can adopt. So lo and behold, God blessed us with a girl, and we were like, what should we name her? What should we name her? What should we name her? And of course, Grace came into mind. So as she was pregnant, I would play Amazing Grace to her stomach, not every day, but almost every day. And I don't know if there's a very well-known OBGYN named Dr. Zsa, who had some commercials on, and he would sing happy birthday for all of the kids that he delivered. So he knew I played the violin, and he was like, come on, you gotta come in and bring your violin and play your violin in the delivery room. I'm like, okay, I've played in Carnegie Hall, but I'm gonna play in the delivery room. So I brought the violin into the delivery room, and she was delivered, and they put her on the table, and she started crying, and I brought my violin over to her and started playing, and she stopped crying. The bad part of the story, everybody's like, oh, that's very sweet. The bad part of the story is that my wife was kind of crashing, her blood pressure was going down, and everybody was busy like singing, going, oh, isn't that nice, isn't that nice? That she grabbed her mother and said, I need help. She's fine. But Amazing Grace has been always like the most dear song to me. So I'd like to play it I would actually love it if you would all just close your eyes and just listen to this amazing, amazing song, Amazing Grace.
Amen.
Thank you. So I know Mark said there's like a question and answer like at the end, but before I move on to the next part of my talk, does anybody have any questions on, yes?
How many owners did the violin have before you?
That's a great question. I have no clue. So I will tell you, because I don't know, and I wish and when I do have time, I do want to look up the provenance of the instrument. What happened was, this is what I do know. This instrument was in Europe for basically, I think, since it was made back in 1727. And then there was a very well-known dealer named Jacques Francais in New York City who was dealing and would go to Europe, and he picked this instrument to bring back with him to New York. And so I was actually the first one to see this instrument after it had been brought over from Europe. So I do not know who the previous owners were, but I love that question, and I will try to, or I'll make up some answer of like who owned it. Yeah, yes.
Now that you're in the money, have you ever thought of getting a Stradivarius?
No. So
I'm just curious.
It's a great question. How do I answer this? So a Stradivarius just sold for 16 million. I would need about, I don't know, 80 of these before I could actually get one. I mean, as instruments have gone up, I will also say the bows. There are bows that sell for $200,000 to $300,000. You wouldn't think that, but they are, and it's basically how it draws over the strings, how it can sort of make it sound. This one actually I bought probably 20 years ago for $10,000, which isn't a lot, but I mean it's a lot. And so to answer your question, it's almost unaffordable. It is unaffordable for musicians to buy these instruments. Most of the people that you see on stage, with a few exceptions, but a lot of them, foundations have bought the instruments for the particular violinist and have let them use it permanently.
Okay.
Yes.
The hair on the bow, what animal?
Horsehair.
What is this?
Yeah.
Which part of the horse? I mean, tail.
Next question. I don't know. I'm sorry. Actually, no, I don't want to say. I'm going to say, forget it. I was going to say tail, but let me find out for you. I'll be like a politician. I don't know the answer to that, but let me get back to you on that. Yes. Yes.
Did you say you have multiple violins, and why?
I do. So I have, so I often play in my church, and I need an electric violin just to keep up with, when you're playing against an electric guitar and a drum and a bass drum, a bass guitar, it's hard to keep up a sound, so they plug me into the sound system. Because as nice a sound as this, it's a different kind of sound. So I have I have an electric violin. I still have my father's violin, my $400 Andrew H. Potter violin that I play if I play at Hartwood Acres or if we play something outdoors. A lot of times we play in 80-degree heat or something like that, and I just don't want the glue to melt because then it becomes a real issue.
What kind of wood? What kind of wood is used?
Tiger maple. Did I say that? And birch. I mean, birch on top, I believe. Tiger maple on the bottom. And it's a split back. Sometimes you see some violins are just a one-piece back. This one is split. Yes.
I'm sure you have to maintain that, maybe occasionally re-glue it. That must be a huge responsibility to keep that properly maintained. And how about insurance? I'm sure you cover insurance. And you have a safe at home, or to safeguard that?
Those are great questions, so let me go one by one. I do not have a safe at home. I have a security system, but I don't have a safe at home. I just keep it, in my living room and just handy if I want to play something. In terms of insurance, yes, the orchestra pays for insurance for all the instruments that are on stage. Your primary instrument. Maintaining, you would be amazed at how durable these instruments are. Once a year, once every other year. I went 3 years without doing anything to this. And it was, what you will see is, if the glue becomes, if it starts melting a little bit, right? There'll be a seam opening, and you can actually hear it in the sound of the instrument because it'll start buzzing. Because what'll end up happening is the wood will start buzzing, and so you can actually hear that, and that's when you know. And so if you do this, so you'll see violinists do this. Close, close, close. Like, you can hear it, it's nothing. If you actually have an opening, you'll hear it snap. I mean, you'll actually hear that. Glad I'm not hearing it, because I don't even get good hair. But you don't hear any openings in there. Yes?
Now, do you have a violin for bluegrass music, or you?
I don't. And my wife is from West Virginia.
Okay.
And so I've been asked, Devil went down to Georgia, some of these other countries. It's a completely different style of playing. And I have to confess, I'm terrible at it. But I gotta learn one of these days. Because I definitely want to go down into West Virginia and, have this Chinese guy playing bluegrass. I think that'd be pretty cool. The question is, how often do you have to get the bow re-haired? It depends on the hair, because sometimes you get really good hair and you can go 6 months or 8 months. Sometimes I've had 1 month where you have to get it re-haired. So it depends on, and if you go, whether the string breaks the hair and stuff can also determine whether it's.
How old is the hair on that bow right now?
November.
Not long ago.
Not that long ago. But it's still, I don't, you can tell I don't need, when they start, and it's one of these things that kind of landslides. Once one goes, they start going pretty frequently after that. Yes?
Were there violinists that you especially admire? Do you have an idol?
Ah, that's a great question. I don't have an idol, I have to say. What I really love about music is that everyone brings their own unique personality to it. And there's some things that I like about this violinist as opposed to this violinist. I like this. I mean, one person I really admire, and it's not because he's Chinese, is Yo-Yo Ma. Only not because, and the reason I admire him is because it's not like he's playing the cello. He's just exuding life and music and character. And so, Itzhak Perlman's a great violinist, Pinka Zuckerman's a great violinist, Joshua Bell's a good, Leonidas Kavakis. I mean, the list goes on and on. But there are, for me, there are a few people that I can just sit back, close my eyes, like I do with Yo-Yo, and go, I'm seeing his heart, like open heart surgery, basically. I'm seeing him just show everything he has. Yes?
I have a question. First of all, comment. I was watching the PNC channel, and they showed, I forget, someplace in central Pennsylvania where a guy makes violins, the process of making the violins. Are you aware of that?
I was told about that. I haven't seen that program, and I have not been to that location. It would be interesting to go there. The thing about finding an instrument is, like, once you find an instrument, you're like, okay, I don't have to worry about it anymore, but it would be interesting to go and see it.
Who do you take that to repair your instrument?
So I have since I bought the instrument, I take it to a friend of mine named Carlos Archieri, who was in New York for years and now is down in Florida. And I saw him last year in Fort Lauderdale and took the instrument to get him to just tune it up a little bit. So, yes, Mark.
You have a saying about music being a place of words.
Yeah.
I saw in talking about, getting your feelings out through your instrument, your music and so forth, I saw a quote one time that music is what feelings sound like.
Yeah, it's great.
That's great.
That's a great quote. The other one, and I actually brought these because I love them, is John Coltrane, right? Famous sax player, John Coltrane said, I think that music, being an expression of the human heart or the human being itself, does express just what is happening, the whole human experience at the particular time that it is being expressed. And that to me is Yo-Yo Ma. I mean, when he's out there, he's just doing his thing. So, yes.
I was going to ask you, kind of a side issue, what do you think of Yuzha Wang?
She's amazing. Yuzha Wang is a pianist. She's probably this tall. Her skirts, I shouldn't say this, but her skirts are about this tall, because we went on tour with her and she kept pushing down her skirt. And it's like, why don't you just wear a longer skirt? But she recently played all the Rachmaninoff piano concertos on the same day in Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
That feat, playing one is a feat.
By memory.
By memory. 3 of them and the Rhapsody.
4.5 hours.
I mean, amazing feat. But yeah, she is. I wish we could get her more often here because.
She's in Europe this week. I follow her.
Oh, do you? I mean, she's a wunderkind. The funny thing is, we've been on tour with her, and I have some friends who are pretty good friends with her. She's a nut. I mean, she's just so casual. I mean, she just is. She's crazy. She doesn't practice a ton, but when she practices, it's like, people that can focus when they have to focus. That's Yuzha Wang. So I have some. So now if you don't. So I know my parents didn't intend it, but that was me. That's me as a kid, and there's a toy violin in the crib with me. I don't know. I put that. So, top golf courses. #1 golf course that I love, Augusta National. So was there, and the whole history of it, similar to the violin. It is just amazing. It's not quite as old as my violin, but it is amazing to be at a place where you see and you know every hole that is there. And it was just so fun to just experience that. Similar to, I'm going to do my top 10 golf clubs first, and then I'll do our top 5, and then I'll do my top 5 concert halls. But it was just amazing to be there and to actually find the connection, not only between golf and music, but to find a connection with the people that you're playing with, that music becomes a very important talking point. Because people talk about, I missed that shot, but also it's interesting to hear how music affects people's hearts in different ways. And so it's nice to talk about music on the golf course. So the next one is Cypress Point. That's my second favorite golf course that I've had the fortune of playing. Just a beautiful, I have to say that I love these golf courses. I love golf courses that I somehow do not play very well at. But the scenery is unbelievable. Beautiful golf course. This one is Pine Valley. This is my third favorite golf course. Again, I have a 10.3 handicap. I'm lucky if I break 100 at any of these golf courses, but they're still really, I'm very, very fond of these golf courses. #4 is a golf course that will be really well known this summer. This is Los Angeles Country Club. The U.S. Open is going to be played there. And it was in January when we played there, so it got a little browned out, but it was fun to play a golf course that was so close to the city. City is so Los Angeles is so sprawling, but it was so fun to play a golf course where you could actually see the skyline. And the last one is Pacific Dunes. Bandon Dunes in Washington. This was quite some time ago, but it just, when you go to a golf course and you play where the scenery is more beautiful than just being out there, it takes your breath away. And it was just so fun to be out there. Based on that picture, I think I'm about 20 years younger. But it was still a wonderful memory. So the first place that I play, I mean, the number one hall for me is the Musikverein in Vienna. So that was our last appearance there. And Ausverkauft, of course, means sold out. And it is amazing to play in a concert hall in Europe. It's amazing how popular the Pittsburgh Symphony is in Europe. You have people waiting, you have people standing in line, you have people that are waiting at the stage door as you're leaving the stage door. The history of classical music in Vienna in particular, all over Europe, but in Vienna, they always say, you know, who's the GOAT? They always say, Tom Brady's the GOAT. Well, I would say Vienna probably is the GOAT for classical music. They get all the greatest artists there. They have the greatest history of composers who grew up there and spent time there. So to be able to play there is really a treat. And that's our music director on the left, Manfred Honeck, with his wife. And that was just a fun picture that we took together. And here's a picture of the inside of the hall. And it is spectacular. Also I'll tell you an interesting story of being there. I went to a concert there, and someone became ill during the middle of the concert. And, you know, you would think, okay, you know, stop the concert. We're gonna, you know, make sure this person's okay. They had those people in there and that person out of there, and the music just kept going. I don't know if they're used to that, you know, or anything like that, but it was like, for me, it was like, man, the music is more important than this person who's like collapsed. But they got him in, they got him out, and it turned out that the person was fine. I don't know if it was heat or something, but there is such a standard there, and an incredible musical standard there that is quite stunning. The next picture, and there's Manfred with his daughter and his daughter-in-law and some friends. The second place, that's my favorite place to play. So Vienna Musikverein is the first one. The second one is the Salzburg Festival. Now, you have all seen The Sound of Music, right? So that's the Salzburg Music Festival. And we just played there in August, this past August. And it's like it's better than the Super Bowl. I don't know what's better than the Super Bowl. It's better than winning the Super Bowl. Playing there is like a dream. Time goes by so fast. You know, you start playing and then the concert's over and you just you know, when you're having such an amazing experience that you want time to stand still. That's us at the Salzburg Music Festival. We had, of course, it was sold out. They gave us a standing ovation. But to play where all of the great artists have played and have been and have walked in the steps of those great artists is always, and we're playing, Lord willing, we're playing there in 24. It's an amazing treat.
Chris,
Yes.
how many American orchestras were invited to the Salzburg Festival this year?
Thank you for that question, Jim. So one orchestra is invited each year, and since during COVID, no orchestras traveled over to Europe, there's sort of a backlog. But I have many colleagues and friends of mine that have never played the Salzburg Music Festival, and it's really because of our music director, Manfred Honeck, the history of the Pittsburgh Symphony. We played there with Maestro Mazel, we played there with Maestros Janssens. So the history of the Pittsburgh Symphony, and also just the Manfred Honeck, our music director, is so well revered there. So sorry, Jim, to answer your question, just one orchestra, and I would say in the United States, there's probably 5 orchestras that have played at the Salzburg Music Festival. And it's an honor to be one of them, to perform there. So this is Mozart's birthplace in Salzburg, just some sightseeing things. And my friend Ann Williams, who's the principal cellist at Mirabelle Gardens in Salzburg. So my third favorite place is Royal Albert Hall in London. And this is why. In the middle of this, you can see the hall and you can see the seats. But there's this thing that they call the proms. And Henry Wood, I'll show you a picture of who Henry Wood is, but it's standing room only. They will sell tickets. I think if our concert's at 7:30, they will open up at 6 or 5:30. And you will see a long line of people. And all of these people, I mean, you say standing room only. These people are where you would be. We would be on stage and they're standing all here. And what is so wonderful about it, it's like a football game. They start talking to us. In fact, Annie, who you saw in the previous picture, we played a concert. There's Annie. She got a haircut in between the first concert and the second concert. And so the people in the middle, in a chant that was like a soccer chant, said, "Nice haircut, principal cellist," like before the concert started, right? And they're collecting funds for underprivileged people in London. And so we're on stage throwing pounds to them. They're shouting, "Nice haircut, principal cellist." And it's sort of just a great atmosphere. So it's the Royal Albert Hall. This is us. We're just so happy to be there. And that's Henry Wood. That's a statue of Henry Wood, who started it in the early 1900s. And that's my hot buffet restaurant in London. I don't know why I put that picture out there, but that's the hot buffet restaurant called Mr. Wu in London. I like the Chinatown in London. So the next hall is the Amsterdam Concertgebouw. And it's interesting, yes, all the golf clubs I like are in the States. All the halls that I like are all in Europe. And this hall is particularly, the acoustics are unbelievable in this hall. It's called the Royal Concertgebouw. And each of those are names of composers. It's not very clear, but in those places there's like Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms, along the walls. And the hall is so special because you can hear a pin drop. You can hear when someone's talking, or when someone's playing, sorry, not talking, when someone's playing from across the stage. You can play so soft and still hear yourself. It is an amazing, amazing hall. And the hall in Boston, Symphony Hall, I don't know if any of you have been to Symphony Hall in Boston, was designed after this hall right here, the Concertgebouw. And that's the last time we were there, which was in 2019. And finally, I don't have a picture of the hall. I do have a picture of the hall. So this is Lucerne, Switzerland. It's a relatively new hall called KKL, Lucerne Culture and Congress Center. I heard a concert here, and the reason I like this concert is the same thing. I think there's another level from where you see that I was sitting in, and I was in the second to last row, and actually Yo-Yo Ma's group was in town playing a concert, and I could hear every note they were playing. I could hear every note he was playing from the top, from the very farthest point. And we've played concerts on stage, and it's the same thing. You play, and there's a certain resonance that just warms your heart. And that's in Lucerne, Switzerland, and we're looking forward, that's my friend Suzanne, but we're looking forward to playing there again. This is my family. Just wanted to share with you my family. My daughter Grace is on the left, my son Wesley, and his wife Morgan, and that's our granddaughter Olivia, and my wife Annette, and our dog Bentley. I wanted to just spend a few more minutes just basically saying that I feel music, as we were talking about, being able to, where words fail. Music is our feelings. I am really trying hard these days. As we all know, COVID really hurt us. Hurt us, certainly. But as adults, I think sometimes maybe we have more strategies to cope with it. But I feel like the kids, the college kids, the kids that lost 2 years. So the orchestra, and certainly me personally, I'm trying to figure out ways in which music can minister to. I think music has a way to be something that it can help our hearts, all of our hearts, no matter if you're 1 or if you're 100. And I certainly think kids need it these days. We started a program called Mindful Music Moments, mainly because we feel like when kids get into school, they're running in, they're looking at their phones until the kids stop, until the teacher says, okay, let's start class. And their minds are racing based on what they were just reading on Instagram or posting. So we started a program called Mindful Music Moments, which is everybody puts down their phone and they listen to 3 minutes of classical music with a 2-minute introduction of what the piece was about. And hoping that, and we've actually, representative was here this week, the teachers have been raving about it just because we all have to lower our blood pressure, and it doesn't get lowered when we're watching a video, and it certainly doesn't happen when we're turning on the news and things like that. But if we can just have music, and especially classical music, or if someone listens to Amazing Grace, it does something for them. I think it would be just a wonderful thing to be able to bring that to the schools. I'm also trying to have a meeting on Monday. You can pray for me. I'm meeting the gang violence, the head of gang violence in Pittsburgh, to find a way for music to get into that community as well. Not necessarily, I think that when a mother loses a son, or a family loses a child to gang violence, that we should be on the front lines to be able to offer music as a place of healing, a point of healing, if possible. It may not be welcomed, I don't know, but I want them to be able to know that we are with them and that music can really bring the community together. I have one last thing to play, which is what I played for my granddaughter's, oh, there she is with my mother, with my granddaughter's kinder music class. This was another thing that was really fun. So this is a little bit of a St. Patrick's Day medley that I put together. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for having me today. It's always a treat for me to talk about music, but I really appreciate your questions, and I have some time if you want to do so. Does anybody have any questions? Any other questions now?
I was going to ask you, when the orchestra goes on tour, do you have the option of being with them, or can you take time off, or are you committed to play every concert on that tour?
If you're on tour with the orchestra, you're committed to play every concert. If you can child care, if you don't have child care, you can get out of it. But I have to say, as one of the musicians, that's going on tour for us is like the Super Bowl, so nobody really wants to miss the tours. But you can, yes, there are cases in which you can.
Isn't it exhausting?
It is very exhausting because you're changing your schedule, you're changing your diet, you're changing everything. But still, when 8 o'clock comes, it's pretty amazing to turn on the music and feel the connection with the audience. Yes.
How often does the PSO get together for practice?
Can't hear her.
How often does the PSO get together for practice?
Great question. So we rehearse. So a typical schedule would be that we rehearse. What is it today? Today's Friday. So it would be we would have a 2.5-hour rehearsal on Wednesday. 2.5-hour rehearsals on Thursday, a 2.5-hour on Friday, and a concert on Friday, concert Saturday, concert Sunday. So we have 4 rehearsals, 4 or 5 rehearsals, depending. When we're with our music director, we usually have 5. Sometimes we'll have 6, but that's a rarity. Yes?
Can you speak about amplification in the halls?
Sure. So I don't know how my violin projected out to the back of the room when I was playing, but if it sounded okay, if you could imagine that there are 32 violins, 12 violas, 12 cellos. That's a pretty big sound in an intimate hall. It's not like PPG Paints Arena where you have to amplify just to make sure that it is heard. So most of the instruments, actually all of the instruments that we have, there is very little amplification. If we play a Pops concert, we recently played a concert with Sting, you know, there'll be a little bit of amplification, but it will not be a big, it will not be a, we don't actually, for me, the sound changes when you amplify, and it's not as pure.
Chris, can you talk a little bit about what it means to be first chair and maybe some of the hierarchy of
Yeah.
orchestra where?
Sure. I thank you for asking that question. I'm in my bio a lot, it says that I'm first chair, first violinist. I'm not first chair. I'm just a first violinist. I mean, there are two violin sections. There's a violin 1 section that plays the higher parts, and a violin 2 section that plays similar parts but maybe a little bit lower. So if you can imagine, if you're looking at a soprano, alto, tenor, bass. So the first violin would be the soprano part, the alto would be the sort of the second violin part. And so there are 16 first violins, and there is a hierarchy where the first chair, first violinist is called the concertmaster. And then they have a person next to them is called the associate concertmaster, and then there's an assistant concertmaster and another assistant concertmaster. And all of us, we kind of rotate, we change where we sit each week, not as a matter of, it's more of, so you don't get stuck sitting with the same person all the time, if that makes sense.
Oh, so that first chair violinist is the one that gets up there and shakes hands and all.
Right. That's the concertmaster, and they tune the orchestra, and if the conductor keels over, they are the one who is responsible. Which brings me to, can I tell one more quick story? I don't want to take up everybody's time. So I was in college and I was the concertmaster for this opera, and the conductor had an anxiety attack. And he was Jewish and he was in Heidelberg, and he was thinking, I don't want to die here in Heidelberg. So he started waving his arms, and I'm sitting there and I was like, okay, do I stop? Do I keep going? And he goes, stop, I'm having a heart attack. So it was kind of like the Musikverein story where I said they carted him off pretty quickly. But an ambulance came and they just started carrying him off. And the singers came up to me and they said, look, you know it, I know it, we know it, just get up there and wave your arms, right? Okay, sure. So I got up there. You will laugh at this. So I got up there, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm conducting. I know what's happening, and we had done it so many times. And I cued him in the wrong spot. It was like the horns. I was like, now. They're like this. So, well, the funny part of the story was the conductor was a very dear friend of mine. In fact, we flew home together after when I went to see him in the hospital. But I remember they're carrying him out on this stretcher, and I see him sitting up, and he told me in the hospital, he's like, the body's not even cold yet, you're taking my spot from me? And I said, yeah, I'm signing autographs for you. But it is the role of the concertmaster to take over in that case. Hopefully they know the score better than me. Anything else? Yes, of course.
Now, once you're in, do you kind of have tenure, or do you have to re-audition?
Yeah, great question. The question is, once you're in, is there tenure, or do you have to re-audition? So you have a 1.5-year tenure process. So after about 6 months in the orchestra, your colleagues will write secret notes about you. We like Ted. We don't like Ted. Ted's nice. Ted's a pain. Ted rushes. Ted plays behind. All of these different things. They give them to the person and they try to change. They recently had it, and one of the members did not get some glowing reviews. So they said, okay, and she was obviously upset. after a year, same thing. It's better, it's not better. And then after a year and a half, you're granted tenure or you're not. Extension, of course, sometimes happens, but it's, once you're in for a year and a half, I mean, you have to be, I don't know if anybody, maybe one or two that has been fired. And people have come in kind of tipsy and a little, I shouldn't say this, but a little, you're playing a Christmas show for the 9th time. So, in between the afternoon show and the late show, there's a little bit of drinking that goes on, and so, but nobody's been fired.
Over here. Here,
Yes, sorry.
what's your opinion of the Disney Hall?
I love the pictures of it. We have not played in the Disney Hall. I would love to, so if you could get us a gig in the Disney Hall, that would be great, because I hear unbelievable things about it. Jim?
Is there a mandatory retirement age for the PSO?
Are you asking how old I am? No, I'm just kidding. No, there's not. We had an 80-year-old clarinet player recently retire who wanted to make it for 50 years. And he did it. So there's not, but you can tell when your skills are declining to the point where it's not fun anymore. And the stress of playing is so much that, it's not fun. Yes?
I read that was a Prokofiev piece that the violin started to teach me a little bit. Do you ever learn that?
The Prokofiev piece that starts with the violin, or?
No, it didn't start with the violin, but in a violin concerto.
Oh, yeah. So he wrote 2 concertos. Yeah, right. So he wrote the one in D major and the one in G minor. Yeah. I played the one in G minor. Actually, I played the one in G minor for my audition here. So, yeah, it's a great piece.
Did you ever run into that situation where the violin starts to teach you a little bit?
Yes. And so the question is, what happens to your violin if you start playing and it starts getting a little bit out of tune? Or I was actually on stage where my string broke. Yeah, that's decent. And we're always supposed to carry some extra strings on stage, and then there's a sort of protocol of who changes the string. But you either switch with someone, you either grab someone else's violin, or you try to change it. It actually happened, it's happened many times to soloists. It's happened to me a few times, but where I just walked off the stage and changed the string. But it's happened where a soloist breaks a string and they grab the violin from the first chair from the concertmaster, and then that string broke, so they had to go from the second one. Yeah, it's a famous Leonard Bernstein story. And the girl, Midori, was unbelievable. She played perfectly in tune with it. All right. Should I just play one? Should I play my St. Patrick's Day?
Yes.